Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Sky High Symposium-1. And let us begin this session.
Ladies and gentlemen, and more importantly, this time it's going to be more of ladies and ladies. Here's a very, very hearty good evening to all of you. On behalf of the Women Members Empowerment Committee, I take great pleasure in extending a very, very warm and a very, very hearty welcome to a series that's designed exclusively for women chartered accountants. It's a series of webinars that we hope, God willing, will be able to host every Wednesday. The title of the series is going to be Sky High, and it's perfectly aligned to the motto of the Women Members Empowerment Committee this year, which is from empowerment to excellence. We've said this before. Education is a state of being empowered. So we're already there. From now on, how do we drive our lives, whether it's professional or it's personal, to excellence? And that's going to be the theme of these webinars. Also take this opportunity to extend a very, very warm and a very hearty welcome to my Vice Chairman of the committee, CA Preeti Savla, and people from the West would be very, very familiar with Preeti. And in all fairness, the entire credit for this program must go to Preeti because she's put in the effort to conceptualize this and to actually get these running. And the topic Sky High was also brainstormed and selected by her, and I think it sort of perfectly summed up what we wanted to stand for this year. In terms of my own perspectives, I think there is a very famous Sanskrit Bhagavad Gita quote that says "Udhare Tatman Atmanam." So it says we all grow to be what we want to be. If your thoughts are high and you want to become high, you become high. If you don't want to and you want to choose to be where you are or lower, that's again a choice. And this was actually very beautifully also summarized by a Tamil poet, Subramanya Bharati. And for those Tamilians in this audience, it's a very nice, just two lines, two words actually. It's called Peridinum Peridikale, which means whenever you're asking for something, ask for something really large. And maybe that's what this whole event is also all about. It's to ask for something really large. Whom do you ask this of? You ask this of yourself. And that's what being excellent is all about. How do I be a better version of what I was yesterday? So with this, I also take an opportunity to welcome CA Sandhya Sharma. Just 1 minute. A bit of a disruption. CA Sandhya Sharma, CFO, Schindler India Limited. CA Dipali Mehta, practicing chartered accountant. CA Forum Bhanushali and CA Nilasha Nugaja, who are here to help us coordinate this event. We hope to encourage more and more women to participate in these events. And with these few words, I'd like to hand back the proceedings to Preeti Savla. And all I can tell you is these events are only going to get better and better. Thank you very, very much for your presence here today. Thank you.
Presentation.
Hello.
How it works.
Hello, everyone.
How it will work.
This is CA Preeti Savla, Vice Chairperson of Women Member Empowerment Committee. And thank you, Shri Priya Madam, the Chairperson of the committee, for addressing the gathering. And all my dear the faculties who are there on the session for today, CA Dipali Mehta, CA Sandhya Sharma, the coordinators, CA Nilasha Novaja, CA Forum Bhanushali, and the entire office of WMEC, and very brilliant, beautiful ladies, chartered accountant. Welcome all of you to this session. This is a Sky High Symposium and session Symposium-1. And every Wednesday, we would like to meet you all and upgrade your knowledge, technical as well as non-technical. And we would like to see you all as very updated with the knowledge, and also want you all to be either as a faculty or as a coordinator, and reach out to all the entire fraternity and sharing your knowledge. So today we have accordingly started this symposium with Dipali and Sandhya. And friends, I would like to invite the suggestions from all of you for doing the excellent programs or excellency for the CA women. I am aware lot of women have taken the break and are not there in the profession for some or the other reason. But for that, we are coming up with faculty development program, refresher courses, residential refresher courses to upgrade their knowledge and to help them, support them to start their career, to restart their career. So in that, we invite your suggestions and your participation in all our endeavors to empower and make the women excellency. And once again, with these words, I inaugurate this symposium and request Nilasha to take the further proceedings and introduce our first speaker of the symposium, Sky High Symposium. And I want to see all of you to reaching to the sky. And further, sky is the not limit. The limit is our passion and what we determine for ourselves. With this, I request Nilasha to introduce our speaker, Dipali Mehta.
Good evening, everyone. I offer my warm welcome for Sky High Symposium-1, that is VCM by Women for Women on every Wednesday. And thank you so much, Sri Priya Kumar ma'am, Chairperson of Women Empowerment Committee of ICI, CA Preeti Savla ma'am, Vice Chairperson of Women Empowerment Committee of ICI, for their wonderful, mind-blowing interaction and inspiring words to us. So thank you, all of you. And now we will start with our first technical session, which is on the recent amendments in GST Act. And so I'm taking privilege to introduce the speaker of our first session. She is Dipali Paresh Mehta, a chartered accountant by profession, practicing since 15 years, founder, partner in Mehta and Shah, a chartered accountancy firm from Mumbai. Her core area of practice is indirect tax, GST. Regarding her professional achievements, she received Best Group Leadership Award for the year 2010-11 and 14-15 at Intensive Study Circle meeting at Goods and Service Tax Practitioners Association, Maharashtra. Then she also received Best Column Writer for 2018-19 and Appreciation Memento for dedicated contribution for 2019-20 in GST Review Monthly Magazine of GST Practitioners Association, Maharashtra. She was convener for ITD Study Circle meeting of WRC for 2019-20. She delivers her lectures at various forums like CPE Study Circles, WRC Chambers Tax Consultants, and GST Practitioners Association Maharashtra Study Circle coaching and various coaching classes. She is also trainer to administrative personnel of corporates on procedural aspects on complying indirect tax law. With this, I welcome a very brilliant and versatile speaker, Dipali Mehta, to this platform of Sky High Symposium-1 to deliver her best, her knowledge on recent amendments in GST Act. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Nilasha, for your kind words. Good evening, everybody. Chairperson Shri Priya ji, Vice Chairperson Preeti, conveners Forum Bhanusali, Nilasha Nagoja, and the ICI team. I first of all thank you for giving me this opportunity to be the first speaker in this Sky High Symposium series. I am truly honored. It's like we all believe what we are, and that is how we are empowered, and that is what we women are always. It's like we are the people who will fix the crown of another woman in front of everybody without even knowing anybody knowing that it is the crooked one. I will share my screen. So today's topic, recent GST updates. Now it's been almost 4 years since GST has been introduced, but still it is in a progressive stage. We can say it is a child of 4 years. So by the time it will be matured, it will take little more time. Then it will be in teens at present. So it is just in the childhood. So day in, day out, we are facing lot many changes. And sometimes it becomes really difficult to cope up because under GST, there are two types of laws. One is the portal law and one is the GST law. And fortunately, unfortunately, both do not run on the same lines. So we have to be updated with both the GST law as well as the portal law. Now I'm going to take up the amendments right from first, which were introduced from 1st January 22, in which certain sections were introduced. This section has been passed in the Finance Act 21, but they were introduced from on as on 31st December with effect from 1st January 22. The first proviso was related to the section 16.2. Now under GST, input tax credit is governed by section 16, 17 and 18. Okay, so section 16 is the base section by which you are getting the ITC. And section 16.2 is such a section which starts with a clause notwithstanding clause. So it says that notwithstanding anything contained in this entire section, that is entire section 16, no registered person shall be entitled to take the credit of the ITC unless certain conditions are to be fulfilled. Most of us are aware of all the conditions. In spite of that, and the latest condition which was incorporated from 1st January 22 was that the details of invoice or debit note referred to in clause A. See, clause A contained that you are supposed to take credit if you have received the goods and services. It has been give purchased from a registered person, then invoice has to be received, that registered person has to pay the tax, and you have to file the return GSTR 3B. So that are the four conditions. Now in these four conditions, this double A was added. Like when the first condition A is relating to the invoice, so it says that the details of invoice of which you are going to take the credit, that should be reflected in the statement of the outward supplies of that supplier. So unless and until it is not reflected in the statement of outward supplies, that is GSTR1 of that supplier, you are not eligible to take the input tax credit. Now, why this section was introduced? When we already had Rule 36.4, which had come from October 2019. Rule 36.4 very clearly mentioned that you are not eligible for the input tax credit uh, unless and until it is not reflected in your 2A or 2B. Now it is just a 2B, so I will not mention 2A anywhere. So unless and until your ITC is not reflected in GSTR 2B, you are not eligible for the ITC. Now when section 36.4 came into the picture, how they introduced was that whatever is reflected in 2B plus 20%. Then little by little they came to 10%. Then they came to 5%. And then from 1st January 22, what they said was that whatever is reflected in 2B only, that only you have to take. You cannot take anything more or extra. So that when 36.4 was already there, why was there need to bring about this section? Now what was happening was, in spite of this rule 36.4, okay, this 16.2, which starts with the notwithstanding clause, it still was, still the dealer was, as per this section, the dealer was still eligible for that input tax credit. And thus, there was always a conflict in the court of law that the rules do not override the section. And many judgments have been there according to this. So just to give power to this rule, this section was introduced specifically to give power. Now, if you will read this section very minutely, what does it say? The details of the invoice or debit note referred to in clause A. And in clause A, it is written that the invoice, you should have received the invoice from a registered person. So in short, the supplier should be a registered person under GST, and supplier should raise an invoice along with his GSTIN, right? And then only those invoices have to be reflected in the GSTR1 of that supplier. Now, as we move ahead, you will come to know why I am emphasizing on this. Now, I have explained to you with an example that suppose AZ purchased goods from B for which an invoice was raised by B to AZ on 28th of January 22. Now, AZ claimed the credit in the 3B of Jan 22. Now, AZ said, I am not going to follow 2B. I will claim the credit, whatever I have in my books of accounts. So, what did he did? He claimed the credit in Jan 22. Now, the invoice of B was not reflecting in the 2B of AZ. So, later on, Mr. AZ had communicated with Mr. B that why your invoice is not reflected. Now, there were two replies given. We will go one by one. The first reply given by Mr. B was that I have forgotten to put this invoice. I have forgotten to put this invoice in the GSTR1 of Jan 22. So I will upload in the Feb 22 GSTR1, which was filed on 10th March 22. So now what happened? In 3B, the credit was already taken. In 2B, it is getting reflected in after 10th March. So will whatever credit this person has taken, so what is the validity of the credit taken in Jan 22 in the hands of AZ? Now, until only on the basis of 36.4, so whether the post-facto reflection of ITC in 2B is a valid compliance as per section 16.2 read with rule 36.4. Now, what does section 16 say? First of all, section 16 says when you are eligible for the credit. It means that whenever you purchase a goods, you are eligible for the credit if it is utilized for your furtherance of the business. That is what the section 16 starts with. So definitely when you take the credit, you are eligible. Okay. Now, the thing is that there is a difference between that you are availing the credit and when you are eligible for the credit. Okay. So eligibility states that it has to reflect in GSTR 2B, then only you are eligible for that ITC. But that cannot stop you from availing the credit. See, the department might create hue and cry. You will face notices. So to be on the safer side, it is always advisable to follow what is given in the rules and sections exactly the same way. So it is always preferable to take the credit when it is reflected in 2B. But by chance, if you have taken the credit earlier and it is reflected in 2B later, it does not mean that you are not eligible to take the credit in the month of January. You can take the credit, but by chance, if this credit is not at all reflected in 2B, and then in that case, whatever on the day of the notice or whenever you find out that this credit is not getting reflected in 2B and neither is going to be, then on that day you need to reverse this credit along with interest from the day you have taken the credit. So 16.2 emphasizes on your eligibility to take the credit. So just because he has taken in the month of Jan and this is reflected in the month of March, it does not means that you are non-compliant. You are compliant, but only thing is that the credit is reflected lately. This you need to, one more time I will caution you that it's always better to follow the ITC as per 2B, but by chance such mistakes happen, then we can take the recourse of section 16.2. Next, it is saying that GSTR1 itself was filed late on 14th February. In such a case, and in January month only this invoice was reported. Okay. So in such a scenario, you can very well you have taken the credit in Jan, but the GSTR1 was filed late and the credit was reflected. So naturally in 2B, it will be reflected in the next month. Then also the stand remains the same as the earlier one. Now, whether any interest can be demanded for claim of such credit in GSTR 3B of Jan 22. See, when is interest demanded? Interest is demanded as per section 50. Now, as per section 50, what does it say? That if you have wrongly claimed the credit, okay, then you have to reverse the credit with interest. Here you have not wrongly claimed the credit. You are having the invoice, you are having all the conditions fulfilled. Only thing is it is reflected in 2B, but next month. Okay, that does not mean that you have wrongly claimed the credit and the precise reason that interest can be demanded from you. So in my view, there can be no interest demanded only because you have claimed the credit in Jan and in 2B it is reflected in March. So whether the provisions of Rule 36(4) would be applicable for written file for the month of December 21 or for the period of January 22 and onwards. So this section 16(2) came into the picture from 1st January. So whatever returns are filed post 1st January, this provision will be applicable to them. Now, whether this new section is applicable to ITC claims for RCM paid and imports. Now, this is very important. Why it is important, that is the precise reason I explained to you this section, that the details of invoice or debit notes referred to in clause A. What do you mean by clause A? And in clause A, it very well says invoice is raised by a registered person under this act. So what happens is that when you are importing the goods, the supplier is not registered under this act, right? So the invoice raised by that supplier does not fall into the section 2A. And that is the precise reason when it does not fall in 2A, it cannot fall into AA also. And thus, whatever import IGST, whenever it is reflected in your bill of entry or whenever you are receiving the bill of entry, you can very well claim the credit on the basis of the bill of entry only. And there is no need for it to reflect in 2B, because see, nowadays all of us are receiving notices that imports are not matching, they are not being reflected in 2B, or they are not catching from the ice skate. The reason is very clear. Even the government has clarified that import has ITC of import has to be given on the basis of the bill of entry, and the same is evident also from the Rule 36 Part 1, wherein the documentary evidences are given where bill of entry is mentioned. So import ka IGST you can very well take. There is no need to wait till it gets reflected in your 2B. Now, ITC claim for RCM, that is reverse charge mechanism. Now, again, I will go to this section A, where it says that ITC claimed on the invoice raised by a registered person. So, if you have to pay reverse charge on an invoice issued by a registered person, now suppose you are taking a lawyer services, that lawyer is registered under GST. Okay. So when he is issuing an invoice, he is a registered person issuing an invoice, and so he very well falls into 16(2)(a). So when he falls into 16(2)(a), obviously AA is also applicable. So if you are paying our reverse charge for registered person, okay, you cannot take the credit unless or until it is not reflected in your 2A or 2B. But if you are paying reverse charge for an unregistered person, say a transporter who is not registered under GST, and you have paid RCM for that, in that matter 16A or 16AA does not apply. So there you can very well take the credit the moment you pay the tax of reverse charge. So this is what is about 16AA. Next very important amendment came under section 50. Now section 50 is relating to the interest on delayed payment of tax. And this amendment was retrospectively from 1st July 2017. Now, what is that amendment? Now, the section 15 says that every person who is liable to pay tax in accordance with the provisions of this act or the rules, but fails to pay within the prescribed time, shall, for the period for which tax or any part remains unpaid, pay interest not exceeding 18%. Right? Now, provided that the interest on tax payable in respect of supplies made during a tax period and declared in the return for said period furnished after the due date in accordance with the provisions of section 39, except where such return is furnished after the commencement. So it says that whatever tax, if you are failing to pay and it remains unpaid for a particular part or a particular period, then you have to pay interest at the rate of 18% for that period. But proviso is included. It says that interest on tax payable in respect of supplies made during a tax period. So whatever supplies are made during a tax period and declared in the return for the said period. You have declared also in that return, which is furnished after the due date in accordance with the provisions of section 39. Now section 39 is for GSTR 3B. Okay, so the interest which is on the tax payable in respect of supply. So for example, we say you are filing GSTR 3B for the month of December. Okay, now fortunately, unfortunately, GSTR 3B for the month of December, you have to file by 20th of January 22. Now you are filing on 25th. So that means you are filing after the due date of filing of GSTR 3B. In such a scenario, interest will be payable on the portion of the tax which is paid by debiting the electronic cash ledger. So it says that you have to pay interest only on the net tax liability, that is tax liability minus the input tax credit. Whatever you pay by way of cash, that is when you have to pay the interest. But please be very sure what the proviso says, that this supplies made during a tax period should be declared in the return of the said period only. So we are all of the impression, wow, the proviso has come in section 50 and we are supposed to pay interest on the net cash liability only. It is not so. This proviso is applicable only if the supplies are made during that tax period and it is declared in the return of the said period. Then only this proviso is applicable. Otherwise, section 51 is applicable, where it says that whatever tax remains unpaid, you have to pay interest on the full amount. So whatever supplies you are declaring after, suppose the December month ka supply you are declaring in January month 3B or February month 3B, then you have to pay interest on the gross liability without deducting the ITC. There were some administrative instructions given because since this is effective from 1st of July 17, so accordingly this recommendation of amendment of section 50 had come with retrospective effect. Why? Because there were judgments which were going against the government, and that was the precise reason why they came out with this proviso. Now facility of interest calculator is also there. Okay, so what is this facility? Now 3B has come out. Before going to this facility, we will go to this case study so that things are very clear. Now ABC Private Limited is an entity engaged in manufacture of goods. ABC made sales of 10 CR on which 1.8 CR was payable. It had an ITC of 1.35 CR in its ECL. Now ABC did not have sufficient funds to pay the complete tax liability payable in cash. Okay, so whatever cash में amount pay करना था, ABC के पास fund नहीं था. The assessee was suggested two options by a consultant. The consultant said, either you file the GSTR 3B for the month of November 21 late. Whenever you have funds, you file at that point of time. Till that time, you do not file your GSTR 3B. Okay. The second option he said was that you file the GSTR 3B but do not report this sales. And you report it when you have money to pay. So what should be the interest liability in both the cases? Okay. Now the first case, that when the 3B is filed late. So when 3B is filed late, what happens is that you are declaring the supplies, that is month of November, you are declaring in the month of the November month ka 3B only. Okay, so in this case, very well the proviso is applicable, and whatever interest liability will be there from 1.8 CR minus 1.35 CR, whatever cash you are going to pay, interest will be calculated only on that amount. Now, by chance, you are not reporting in November at all, but you are reporting in December, which you are filing on 20th January 22. In such a scenario, what happens that you are not reporting the supplies incurred in that tax period in the same tax period. You are reporting it in a different tax period. And in such a scenario, what happens that you will have to pay interest liability on full 1.8 CR At present, the section is framed in this way only. So provided if anybody goes in future under litigation and judgment might come in the favor, but seems difficult because the section is very clear that they want to give benefit only to those people who are declaring the supplies in the same period, okay, and not afterwards. Now the GST portal also gives an automated computation of interest. Now how it is there, I will just explain to you. That is, this interest calculator is there, which has come in, that is a new functionality of the GST portal. In this case, what happens is that when you are filing 3B, all right, you are writing your outward supplies and everything, then you are making the payment, okay, and then when you are trying to go to the payment section, and after you are set offing your payment, a small button comes up wherein it will say that tax liabilities of earlier period. Okay, in this button, if in that particular GSTR 3B you have reported any supplies of the earlier period, then you have to enable that button. You have to mention the period of that supply, say December 21 in our November 21 in our example. You have to write the net value and you have to write the tax amount 1.8 CR and then upload the 3B. So now what happens that after uploading the 3B of this December 21, wherein you have mentioned that you have recorded the supplies of November 21. So when you are next month, when you are filing the month of for the month of January, 3B for the month of January, this interest will be auto populated in 3B. They will be auto calculated and auto, just like now how the late fees are auto populated in 3B, in the same way this interest amount also will be auto populated, and then we have to pay that interest. But since this is just a beginning of this functionality, they have kept this functionality as editable. Okay, so what happens is that suppose you feel that no, you do not want to pay full gross interest, you will pay only on the net cash liability. So you will pay the interest by your way of calculation. Now, when the PDF of 3B is generated after filing the 3B, you will see that both the interest calculation are reflected, auto calculated by the portal and calculated by the user or the dealer. Both will be reflected in your 3B. So mind it well that this all are being recorded in your 3B. Now, suppose you will think that I will not show only my that this is my earlier tax liability. It's okay when you are not going to show it in your 3B, that interest won't be calculated, but then you are filing a wrong return. So tomorrow again you will be facing assessment for filing of wrong return, for declaring wrong taxes, for evasion of tax. Lot many things can happen. So that solution is not viable. So here what approach is correct is it's better to file November 21 3B little late. Okay, so in that case, you have to pay interest only on the net cash liability. Now, one more dangerous section which has come is relating to 7512. In that 7512, this section is related to provisions related to determination of tax. Now, 7512 says that notwithstanding anything contained in section 73 or 74, where any amount of self-assessed tax in accordance with the return furnished under section 39, that is 3B, remains unpaid, either wholly or partly, or any amount of interest payable on such tax remains unpaid, the same shall be recovered under the provisions of section 79. Now, if you all know that at present the portal does not allow you to file 3B unless and until you don't pay the tax. Okay. But the act does give the permission that you can file a payable GSTR 3B, which the portal is at present not allowing. But what does it say? That whatever self-assessed tax you are declaring in your 3B return, if it remains unpaid or the amount of interest is unpaid, then the recovery provisions under section 79 will start. And section 79 is straight away the recovery proceedings without issuance of notice. Okay. And in this, the explanation was added that for the purpose of this section, what do you mean by self-assessed tax? Now, self-assessed tax shall include the tax payable in respect of details of outward supplies furnished under Section 37, that is GSTR 1. So, whatever outward supplies you have furnished in GSTR 1, but not included in return furnished under Section 39, that is GSTR 3B, then that is self-assessed tax. So, moment you disclose what amount of tax in your GSTR 1, that becomes your self-assessed tax. And if the same you are not including in 3B, then it means that to that extent the tax remains unpaid. In one, you are declaring, say, 100 crore tax liability. In 3B, you are declaring 80 crore tax liability to the tune of 20 CR. It is unpaid. And the department can start the recovering proceedings under the provisions of Section 79. And 79 is a very what you say, a section which is last resorted to, even during the assessment and notices. Whenever it is the recovery section which is last resorted to, but here the provisions of Section 79 will be applicable. Now then, there was lot of hue and cry that suppose by mistake I have shown some liability in GSTR 1, ek zero zyada add ho gaya, so what do I do? Definitely I'm going to amend it in the next month. But for that particular month, was it, for example, I was supposed to show a liability of 10 CR in one GSTR 1. I showed 10 extra add ho gaya. I showed a liability of 100 CR. And in 3B, I'm showing 10 CR. There's a difference of 90 CR. To that extent, if the tax remains unpaid, tomorrow immediately the recovery proceedings will start and department will come to my office, my home, everywhere. Okay. In such a scenario, the department then issued a guidelines that whenever such huge difference is found in 1 and 3B, you have to first call for an explanation from the dealer that why there is a difference. And when the dealer submits that explanation that by mistake ho gaya mera, I'm going to amend it in the next month. And in the next month, GSTR 1, you are see to it that it is amended. Do not wait for the further period. See to it that it is amended next month. Whatever mistakes you are making in one GSTR 1, see to it that you amend it in the next period itself to avoid the recovery proceedings. So when you give an explanation and the explanation is to the satisfaction of that proper officer, he will not initiate any proceedings against you. But if you fail to submit an explanation, then definitely the recovery proceedings will be initiated. So now, for example, we'll go with an example that AB Limited reported an exempted supply as taxable supply in B2C section in GSTR 1 wrongly. Okay, exempt supply को taxable supply डाल दिया B2C में. He observed the mistake before filing of 3B. So in 3B, he declared it as exempt supply only. Now the assessee was not aware of the option at all that B2C can be amended. Okay, so there was no amendment made. In the end, what happened that GSTR 1 had a tax liability, GSTR 3B did not had any tax liability. In such a scenario, can department initiate recovery proceedings? Yes, they can very well initiate, but they have to give us opportunity of being heard to the dealer, that is to AB Limited. And if AB Limited explains to the satisfaction of the proper officer, then no recovery proceedings will be initiated. So now the dealer is asking that will DRC 07 will be issued if the proper officer is not satisfied with your explanation. Yes, DRC 07 will be issued and immediately the recovery proceedings also will start. Now, in case the supply was taxable but was not reported in 3B due to omission or interpretation misunderstanding, then can one take option of payment of tax in installment under the law? Can interest be paid in installment? See, there is a option of installment of tax payment under the law, and you can very well pick that option. Now we come to the very unique change which has happened in the restaurant services. Now, till date, what was happening was that whenever you were ordering through e-commerce operators, any restaurant services you are availing through e-commerce operators. What was happening was the invoice was raised by the restaurant. The e-commerce operators were only a facilitator in supplying the services from the restaurant to the the consumers. Okay, so the invoice was raised by the restaurant, tax was paid by the restaurant. The e-commerce operator only were supposed to collect the TCS or deduct the now from 1st January 22. What happened was this restaurant services are included in the section 9(5) of the GST Act. Now, this section 9(5), what does it say? That government, on recommendation of the council, may specify category of category of services. The tax on intrastate supplies only, intrastate, of which shall be paid by the electronic commerce operator if such service are supplied through it, and all the provisions of this act shall apply to such e-commerce operator as if he is the supplier liable for paying tax. Now, why there only intrastate services supplies given here? Because this is the CGST Act. The similar provision is also there in the IGST Act, that whenever you are getting any specific any category of service which are through the electronic commerce operator. And what do you mean by electronic commerce operator? Means any person who owns, operates, manages digital or electronic facility or platform for electronic e-commerce. So, for example, this Swiggy is there, this Zomato is there. All these are electronic operators because they provide a platform for electronic commerce. So till now, what was happening that all the restaurants who were registered in this Zomato, okay, they were not issuing the invoice or paying the tax. And if those restaurant people were unregistered or their threshold turnover was less than 20 lakhs, and that is the reason they were not registered, nobody was paying the tax because those people were not registered. So whenever they were not liable to raise a invoice. Now, by virtue of from 1st January 22, supply of restaurant services was included. Already, what all services are included? By way of transportation of passengers by radio taxi, okay, or motor cab or maxi cab. Then supply by way of providing accommodation in hotels, inns through this ECO. Then housekeeping, plumbing, carpentering, etc. through this ECO. That is this urban club. Okay, then and the last which is included, supply of restaurant service other than the services supplied by restaurants it enjoined located at specified premises, and specified premises is generally the 5-star hotels. So let us have this example that Mr. Tasty Bite is a cloud kitchen which is supplying restaurant services through electronic commerce operator only. It has no physical outlet where the customer can sit, visit and eat. Now, till 31st March 21, till 31st December 21, it is registered under GST and was paying tax at the rate of 18%. Okay. Now, if you will understand that there was an what you say circular issued by which the CBIC has clarified that cloud kitchen will be a restaurant service. Why? Because the explanatory notes to that clarification stated that restaurant services including takeaway services, room services, door delivery of food. Okay, therefore it is clear that takeaway services and door delivery of services are consumption of food and are also considered as restaurant services. So if any entity who is supplying this takeaway or door delivery services of food will be covered in a restaurant service. So cloud kitchen was actually to be covered in the restaurant services, but it was and under restaurant service, what is the tax rate? 5%. Now this person was paying 18% GST considering it is a cloud kitchen. So it is stating that whether company can claim the refund of the tax paid as if the services are classified as restaurant service and the rate of GST. This is a very, very dicey situation wherein it definitely will go into the litigation, because if the company will ask for refund, then at the same time they must have taken the ITC also for paying that 18% GST rate. And under restaurant services, input tax credit is not allowed. So this is a very litigative matter wherein whether the refund will be allowed or not, because the department is never interested in giving the refund. Whether it can surrender is the GST registration with effect from 1st January 22. They cannot surrender the GST registration because whosoever are dealing through electronic commerce operators, they have to compulsorily register under section 24. So surrendering of registration certificate is not available to them. Whether it is legally required to show the details of outward supplies on or after 1st January. Now, the department has also come out with this clarification that whatever uh, they had come out with this circular 167 by 23, wherein it stated that since 3B and 1 do not have that facility wherein you can show separately whether this is through ECO. So at present you have to, in one you have to show it in B2B, and you have to tick that electronic commerce operator as yes, and similarly in B2C. But in 3B you have to at present mention it in 3.1.C, that is for the exempt supplies. So at present you mention in that exempt supply category for by the restaurant and by the electronic commerce operator. Obviously now they are the suppliers, or and they are providing the outward supply. So obviously they have to record as B2B supplies in GSTR 1 or B2C supplies, and at the same time in 3B also they have to record it as an outward supply. So this is as far as restaurant service. Now there were some changes in the detention seizure of goods, penalty levied by the goods. I will explain to you this. How much time I have?
Ma'am, 10 minutes you have.
Okay, so this I will explain to you in short so that we can cover the other slides also. This is what it says is that till now, see, you everybody, all of us knows that for e-way bill, when there is a movement of goods transported from one place to another, you are supposed to carry certain documents. Okay, that is the invoice, delivery challan, e-way bill. Right now, suppose if you are not carrying those documents and you are caught in between and your goods are detained, then there is certain amount of tax and penalty. In such a scenario, two things happen. Owner comes forward and pays the tax, owner of the goods. Okay. And the second is the owner of the conveyance or vehicle, that is the transporter, pays the penalty. Now, what has happened is that there were two, after 1st January 22, there were changes. And prior to 1st January 22, what was the scenario? Now, suppose the value of the taxable goods was 1 lakh. So, obviously, the tax at the rate of 18% was 18,000. So, initially, if the goods were detained and the owner comes forward, the dealer was supposed to pay 100% of tax, 100% of penalty. Okay, so tax plus penalty, he was supposed to pay 36,000. All right. Then suppose the owner do not come forward, then the dealer was supposed to pay 100% of tax or 50% of the value of the goods, whichever is higher. So he has to pay 18,000 plus penalty 50,000. Okay, and totally he has to pay tax plus penalty 68,000. At the same time, whatever tax they have paid, which is included in the penalty, needs to be reduced. So here 18,000 will be reduced because in the 50,000 there is 18,000 of tax liability. So that will be reduced, and the net effect will be 50,000. This was the situation prior to 1st January 22. In such a scenario, what was happening was many of them were taking the benefit of whatever tax they have paid. So, for example, the goods were detained in the state of Gujarat. Okay. Now that person is not registered in the state of Gujarat. That person is registered in Maharashtra. Now that officer will compulsorily make that dealer to pay the Gujarat GST. When you are paying the Gujarat GST, how are you going to take the effect of the Gujarat GST in Maharashtra? Because you and the dealer who always contends that I have already paid the tax, I will not pay it again. So then from 1st January, there were changes. Now what they are saying that you have to pay 200% penalty, 200% of tax. Penalty, you have to pay 200% of tax, and there will be no refund, no adjustment, nothing. So straight away, 100% tax condition was removed, and you have to pay 36,000. And if the owner does not come forward, then either 50% of the value of goods or 36,000, whichever is more, you have to pay. Similarly, if it is exempted goods, then the rules are still the same. But whatever benefit earlier of tax the person was getting, now he will not get because he has to pay 200% penalty. Now there is a, if you, I'll give you the portal updates now. The first portal update is that they have started a search HSN functionality. Now this search HSN functionality is now linked with the e-invoice or database also and artificial intelligence. So now you will find the words which are commonly used in the trade parlance. Okay, earlier we were not, when we tried to find the HSN, there were some defined products. So now because it is linked with e-invoice, and artificial intelligence, you are able to search HSN very fast by writing the name of the goods or the name of the product, and you get the HSN. So that facility has been started, and the link is that you have to go in home services, user services, search HSN code. Now this facility is available even after login or pre-login also. This facility is available. One more important amendment which came from 1st January 22 is what, that GSTR, you cannot file the GSTR1 if GSTR 3B of the preceding month is not filed. Means if GSTR 3B of December is not filed, you will be not be allowed to file the GSTR1 of January. Now, if you recollect our earlier example of that November and December of that 1.8 CR. So if that person is not filing the return GSTR 1 or 3B of that particular month, 3B of November, then he will not be allowed to file the GSTR 1 of December at all. Okay. We have taken November, December. Let us take of Jan, Feb. Then you will realize that unless and until you do not file the 3B of January, you cannot file the one of this next month, February. So in such a scenario, if you will see that earlier example, what happens to that person? That person does not have any option but to file the 3B late of that November month. Because if he skips there and he shows it in the next month, there is a huge amount of interest. And if he files very late, then his further returns will be delayed. So the people do not have any other option but to pay the tax properly. Next is the Aadhaar authentication. Now, if you all know that whenever we log in into the portal, that blue thing comes wherein you are supposed to say that whether you want to go for the KYC or not. Please note that I till now people were just avoiding, they were doing remind me later. Okay, do not do that. Do the Aadhaar authentication because it is now mandatory if you want to claim the refund of any kind of refund you want to claim from the department. Aadhaar authentication is mandatory. Claiming of refund of IGST on exports from the customs, there also Aadhaar authentication is mandatory. Otherwise, you are not getting. If you want to do any amendment in registration, Aadhaar authentication is mandatory. If you want to revoke your cancellation of registration, then also Aadhaar authentication. And for new registration, obviously you cannot go forward without this Aadhaar authentication. So please see to it. I would advise you here that whenever you're going for new registration, after generating the TRN, there is one red line coming on the portal. In that, the verification of Aadhaar link is given. So before proceeding to write, what is the authorized person, authorized number, and everything, you please click on that link and see that the number is reflected in the Aadhaar card and the Aadhaar gets authenticated. Otherwise, it is a great difficulty in getting the registration. Now, there are certain new facilities available in GSTR1. First of all, you can file nil return 1 and 3B through just an simple SMS. Then till now, what was happening was that credit note and debit notes were linked with the original invoice. Now they have enabled this. So now you will not get the original invoice number at all in your on your screen. Directly credit note number and debit note number. Then you are also now getting a facility of a master list of vendors and HSN codes, which goes on repeated. So the portal automatically gives you a master that these are your HSN and these are your recipients which were repeated. So it creates a master and you can take the help of, nowadays everybody does it with software. So I think this won't much be of help. But if we go to that Mofussil areas where they still file 1 and 3B in without a software, this master list is of great help. till now, what at present what we are doing, that we are first submitting GSTR1 and then filing it. So now they are going to remove the submit button, and straight away you are supposed to file the GSTR1. Now, if you will see the new revamped structure, see, initially, so at least we were able to come to know how many invoices, what is the tax amount, and all those things. Now you are not getting, you are getting just the B2B and the number of invoices outside. And then you have to actually check the draft format to see whether your details have been correctly. So now in that too, in this draft format, you will only get B2B, B2C, credit notes, debit note. Credit note, debit notes also you will get merged, like plus minus karke milega. Now they are going to give a full detailed summary in GSTR1, like B2B of SEZ also, RCM, deemed exports, everything they are going to give in detail in the PDF format, so you can check it in a better way. For 3B, everybody will receive a PDF of file 3B in their registered email ID. Now let us see how far it goes, but yes, they are going to provide this. And also a new table 3.1 capital A has been added for reporting the taxable supplies through e-commerce operators, which we just talked about. There is one important thing which they have started is communication between the taxpayers functionality will enable. So you can communicate with your supplier or your recipient on the portal, which will be on the official record. So suppose if you find that somebody has not filed their one GSTR1, so officially from the portal, after you're logging in, you can communicate with that supplier that why have you not filed GSTR1? I have purchased the goods from you. So if you file, then only I'll be able to get the credit or whatever. Then whatever reply that person gives, everything will be on record on the portal. So this is a very important functionality which they have started, or maybe they will start within next short period of time. One major important is of e-invoicing. This is also of great help. Now they are saying, see, dire dire they want to make e-invoicing applicable to each and every dealer. At present, they have said that whatever turnover about 20 CR, e-invoicing is applicable from 1st April 22. And there is a facility on the e-invoice portal whereby you will see the eligibility of applicability. Now, unfortunately, this eligibility is only till the period 2021. Okay, in 21-22, if you have crossed 20 CR, then that portal doesn't show your eligibility. And this 20 CR is can be in any period, right from 17-18 till 21-22, March 22. In any of the 4.5 year ka period, wherever you have crossed 20 CR, this e-invoicing is applicable. ऐसा नहीं है कि 20-21 में ही 20 CR क्रॉस होना चाहिए या 21-22 में. In 17-18, suppose you have crossed 20 CR, then also e-invoicing is applicable now, even if your liability is less than 20 CR in 21-22. So the portal will show till 2021, the portal is calculating. For 21-22, you have to go through a separate under the registration tab, wherein they will say that enable e-invoicing. There you have to enable e-invoicing by OTP, and then you are eligible for e-invoicing. So unless and until you do not enable, the portal will not allow you to issue the e-invoice. If you are eligible, then it will automatically start. Then you just have to create a login ID password. But if you are not eligible till 2021, but in 21-22 you have passed 20 CR, okay, then you have to enable. Like one of my client itself, they were crossing 22 CR in the month of March itself. So in portal also till February, the turnover was 18 CR only. And in the month of March, it went to 24 CR. So then what happened that we actually had to go and enable that e-invoicing, so that from 1st April, he has to issue the e-invoice. But this e-invoice is compulsory only for B2B transactions. It is not there for B2C transactions, and it is not there for exempt supplies. But for exports, yes. For B2B supplies, yes, this is compulsory. And e-invoices में exceptions है, that is the banking and financial institutions, GTA, this all things people are exempted from e-invoicing. Now 2A, 2B, now department is going to come with a very important matching tool, which will be available in your that returns services ka format. This matching tool, what will happen? It will give you an Excel format. You have to incorporate your purchase register in that Excel format. Then you have to upload that Excel format. When you upload that Excel format, automatically the portal will match it with your 2B, all right, and give you the report. So that kind of a tool they are going to come out with. Now, when you are applying for new registration, a very important facility has come. That is, a Google map with a pin head has been provided. So if you do not want to, fill all the parts of your address part, what you have to do is you have to drag that Google map pin to your exact location, and automatically all the fields will be filled up. Suppose you do not want to do that because that is very maybe little bit of time consuming and cannot be exact. Then whenever you start filling the address part, nature, they will give you some choices, whether it is this. You can just select one choices and balance part will be filled up automatically, like the pin code, the state, the city, and all. So suggestive drop down will be given to you, and latitude and longitude of the address will be auto populated only, and it will be non editable under all the circumstances. There is one ITC 04, if you are aware, which a person who is dealing with a job worker or who are sending goods to the job worker, receiving goods from the job worker, they have to file this ITC 04. Earlier, this was a monthly return, then they converted into quarterly return. Now they have converted into two parts, half yearly return and annual return. And that too is divided between the type of turnover. If your turnover exceeds 5 CR, it is a half yearly return. If your turnover is less than 5 CR, it is an annual return. Now they are going to start with another status of taxpayer. That is, an appropriate alert will be delivered to your returns module depending on the status of taxpayer. Suppose you have not filed one return, suppose you have not filed 6 returns, and the officer is going to cancel your registration, that alert will come to you, right? So if the officer has cancelled your registration, now you are revoking that, and the officer is going to restore, then that alert will also come. Suppose you are crossing the turnover, you are under composition scheme, but you have crossed the turnover of that limit, that is 1.5 CR. So then automatically that alert will come that now you have to withdraw from the composition levy because your turnover is more than 1.5 CR. So all these alerts they are trying to put now on the portal after your login. Then recently, just on 31st March 22, Customs had come out with a notification that whatever goods are imported or procured by EOUs, STP, or EHTP units, IGST and compensation sets on such goods were already exempted. This is now further extended till 30th June 22. Then there is a rate difference in manufacturing and trading of brick claims, okay, which is with effect from 1st April 22. From 1st April 22, whosoever deals in this product, whatever HSN I have given, that is fly ash bricks, bricks of fossil mills, building bricks, earthen or roofing tiles, all this were covered at the and taxed at the rate of 5% till 31st March 22. But now they have been changed to 12%. Okay, so these bricks and all are going to be very costly now, because for the builders, especially because they are not going to get the ITC. So if these people charge 12%, then builder are not going to get the ITC of that 12%. But at the same time, there is a special composition scheme benefit given to this kind of dealers. And according to this scheme, the tax rate will be 6%, provided ITC is not available, which are exclusively used in supplying such goods. Okay. Now, suppose you are dealing in this goods as well as other goods. So how will you then bifurcate your ITC? Then you have to go as per rule 42, 43 in proportionate to the turnover of the ITC of the bricks and ITC of other goods. And this ITC of bricks or a turnover of the bricks has to be treated as exempt supply, and accordingly rule 42, 43 needs to be applied. At the same time, what has happened is, if you all are aware that at present the threshold limit of registration for provider of goods, dealers of goods, is 40 lakh rupees. Okay. Now there are some exceptions to there, like the people who are selling ice creams, people who are selling pan. So this bricks are also included in this exception. So now if you are dealing in this bricks fry ash, bread, something, and if your turnover is crossing 20 lakhs, you are liable for registration. You cannot wait till your turnover comes to 40 lakhs. These are the to-do list which you are supposed to take care from 1st April. First is there has to be a unique invoice series from 1st April 22. Then LUT, if letter of undertaking, you have to take. Technically, so you have to take before the year end, but still, if you have not taken, you still have time and you can take the LUT. Whatever ITC which was to be, you have reversed or you have taken, so you just calculate to avoid any additional interest. You calculate whatever final ITC you are supposed to take. So, accordingly, you file your 3B. Also, at the same time, suppose there is any mismatch in one 3B, it is better to do it now, not wait till September, so that every reconciliation is done in the same financial year and it is not shifted to the another financial year, because everybody is now aware the kind of notices we are receiving just because we have shifted the liability to the next financial year. It's a task giving replies to the officer. Suppose there are head office and branches, then there has to be cross charge invoices has to be issued, if not issued till date, and see to it that whatever expenses has been shared, invoices has been issued for that. Then for the real estate industry, you all are aware that you have to pay goods, what to say, GST, if you have procured goods or inputs or input services from a URD dealer, and that is more than 80% of your total purchase, then you have to pay the tax under RCM. That also you have to calculate and pay it right now in March. Otherwise, from April, the interest will start applying. And e-invoicing, as I have already mentioned. So friends, thank you for your attention, and any questions I'll entertain.
Ma'am, there are just 3 questions. I'll just take them very quickly.
Yes.
So the first question is how to handle alterations in invoice after e-invoice has been generated.
See, when you generate an e-invoice, you have 24 hours of time to cancel that e-invoice for that any alteration available. So when you are preparing an invoice, you realize immediately, you immediately cancel that invoice. Only thing is, you will not be able to, use that same invoice number. You will have to change your invoice number, but you can definitely cancel your e-invoice in 24 hours time. And then you can alter and raise and issue a new e-invoice with a different invoice number. Next. Similarly, we do the same thing in when we issue a sales invoice. Suppose we find some mistake in under SAP system or ERP system where you cannot, issue a prior invoice or predated invoice. In such a scenarios, what happens is that once you issue the invoice, you make a mistake, you have to cancel that invoice and issue a new invoice. Same is with e-invoicing, and you have 24 hours time for that. Next question.
And next question is, there is transfer of used office furniture on which ITC was not availed as the transferor was not registered at the time of purchase of the asset. Will it attract GST as at the time of the transfer of the asset, the transferor is a registered taxpayer?
This is not related to my topic. This is purely a law matter that, but you have to refer to section 18 where your answer is available there.
Last question, in case the turnover is less than 20 crores, still we prepare an e-invoice, then is it mandatory to use this facility for all the invoices throughout the year?
See, once you, it is for you, if the turnover is less than 20 CR, it is not mandatory to issue e-invoice only. But voluntarily, if you are issuing, it is advisable to issue for all the invoice, because half you will issue, half you will not issue. Then again, future may there is a chances of the notice being issued to you, because you all must be aware nowadays, because of the discrepancies between e-way bills and GSTR 1 and 3B notices are coming. So similarly, in e-invoicing also, people are going to face the same thing.
So I have been allotted the noble task of offering a very well-deserved vote of thanks to CA Dipali Mehta. I'm sure all of you will agree with me that the inputs given by her with respect to the recent GST amendments are very useful in our day-to-day GST compliances. Thank you, Dipali ma'am, for accepting this and contributing your time and efforts. So on behalf of the entire Women Empowerment Committee of the Institute, I offer a very hearty vote of thanks. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Picture abhi baki hai mere dost.
Yes.
Remember that.
So without wasting much of time, I would want to introduce the next speaker for today. That is C.S. Sandhya Sharma. C.S. Sandhya Sharma is a chartered accountant by profession, and she's working in Schindler India for more than about 12 years now as a CFO and a chief supply chain officer. She is taking care of its 2 factories. Before Schindler India, she was associated with Mahindra and Mahindra. She is a diehard optimist and a strong believer that investment in strong relationships has the best payback, and spending on creating memory should be accounted as income rather than expense. So with this brief introduction, let's welcome today's second speaker for the day, C.S. Sandhya Sharma. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. So Forum, let me understand from you before I start my monologue. What is the problem do you think we need to address?
So, ma'am, so since this is a women committee forum, I think there are a lot of women who are undermining themselves, and they are always under the impression that we as women cannot succeed in our life, or probably we cannot achieve what others as a male person can. So I think you as a CFO, being a lady CFO, I think you are the perfect person for today's session, and I am sure the ladies are going to benefit a lot from your session, ma'am.
Okay. Let me first start. I strongly believe it is not that the women need to be empowered. We are already empowered. Okay. It is we need to start trusting ourselves. Okay. Trusting ourselves. Huh? I'm not, everything else will change. I don't know how many of you have watched Three Idiots.
Almost
All is well. Okay, so probably let me start. I don't know whether it's an interactive, how many participants are there, not sure.
Ma'am, if you can. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Around 900 participants are there.
Okay, Ruchi, so let me probably not an interactive, a monologue. I would start with personally my story.
Yes, ma'am.
Very average student, very average. I don't recollect ever I would have scored above 60.
Yes,
Okay, 60%. Never. I remember my 10th marks. I scored 60% with some 4 or 5 marks grace. Okay. A very, I wouldn't say underconfident is also a very much superficial word. For a lack of better word, I would say underconfident all the time. Okay. Let me tell you where all the underconfidence reflected. In my dressing sense, I would always try to be one of the crowd because I don't want to stand out. Even though personally my choice would have been better or different, not better, different. I would never wear any makeup. Makeup is, the time I grew up, makeup was not the word. Even a cream or a powder was a strict no for me because I did not want to stand out. Anyways, I wanted to be कि ये एक average लड़की है. This was what was the impression that I had about myself, and I wanted to give about the same impression to others as well. So a very underconfident child all the time. So coming from a North Indian background, it was not that there were a lot of expectations from the girl child. It was just that you study basic so that you can get a good groom and you get married off. So on the same lines, I was married off at the age of 20. I started my articleship after that. after my marriage. Thankfully, my in-laws were coming from that background, so they supported me. Um, was I confident that I would clear my CA? Probably I did not even think so much. Okay. But I just started on the journey of CA, did my articleship. And I remember one of the aunties, so-called, asking me, बेटा समझ में आता है क्या उसमें क्या लिखा हुआ है? And I remember answering her, English में ही है. मतलब I can definitely understand it. It's not that it's in French. But this was the level of confidence which others had about me. And not to blame them, I had the same about myself. But one thing which was very strong in me was the core values developed by my dad. And one was basic one. I don't know how many of you can understand Hindi, but I can't tell in English, is सब कुछ करके देने के लिए लोग मिलते हैं, कमा के कोई नहीं देता. Right? You can get any services that you want by paying money, but no one will earn and give you. That line has always stuck in me, that I need to be financially independent. Okay. So for me, the most important part in my life always have been, how do I live the core values at all the time. Okay. I had challenges during my articleship. I would not like to mention in this forum, but there were a lot of challenges which I had, because I had to from the partner front as well, and I had to take my husband's help at that point in time to come out of it. I was not even confident that I could get that form 108 or something signed at that point in time. This was the level that I was. But still completed my articleship. One thing which helped me sail through is that me and my husband had decided that till I clear my CA and have a decent job, we'll not have our child. So I had my daughter 8 years after my marriage. I conceived 8 years after my marriage. There were a lot of challenges to manage, but thankfully my husband supported it. But yes, the core values, I would say, helped me to sustain that average journey. I could clear my CA, not in first attempt, of course, but cleared it. And then started working in Bombay Dyeing for 2 years in internal audit. And that time I was in need of money, because I was coming from a very humble background and we were married and had to sustain the family expenses. So it was needed 2 years in Bombay Dyeing. And then I changed again to Mahindra and Mahindra in internal audit, 5 years in internal audit, and then moved to MIS. But I met my two big mentors in Mahindra. One was my internal audit boss. He used to call me the boy among the men. And second was, he's still in Mahindra and Mahindra, Rajiv Goel, and I'm eternally grateful to him for whatever he guided me. And one basic principle was that you be yourself. Don't try to emulate someone. And that, as women, somewhere we don't trust ourselves and we try to emulate someone. And हमारे पास ना originality बचती है, ना copy कर पाते हैं ठीक से. So we lose both the edge. So for me, if I start, for me, first thing is core values are very strong, because that is what differentiates me with others. That is the same thing where others know that with these core value, how Sandhya will behave in different situations. So they know that the behavior will be consistent in even in different situations, because the core values are strong. So I would suggest never compromise on core values in any place. You will never be happy there. and you will never be able to achieve what you want. Second, for me is my life is my responsibility. Anytime you think any situation, and I don't know how many of you know the Kaizen method or the 5 why method. If you go to the 5th why, it is always that I had made a choice to be quiet or to speak up. Most of the time, the choice that we made was not gutsy, I would say, or probably we felt it appropriate to be quiet and let the situation glide. It is very easy for us to blame my mother-in-law was like that, my husband was like that. But we have made the choice to be in that situation. I cannot blame others. So for me, always my life is my responsibility. It's my actions or inactions, my choice. And probably for some of you, it may not make sense, but I think it is always better to talk to self first than to others. Third thing I would say is trust yourself. The most important part which we miss amongst many of us is we don't trust. I was attending a program where they say that for a job interview, and many of you must have heard it already, but on the cost of repetition, if a man has 60% of the capabilities, they will apply for the job. A lady, if she has even 80% of the capabilities, she will think, "Arey, 20 nahi hai, so I will not apply for it." So trust yourself. You can always learn. Even if you are at 60% level, you can always learn and grow. Next bit is building strong relationships everywhere. At home, at work. It makes the whole change management easier. And change management can be one at home front is changing my job, changing my location of job. Okay, anything, or maybe it is ideas in office where we think कि हमारा कौन सुनेगा? Why should people listen to us? So for me, that is very important that we invest our time in building strong relationships in office, at home, everywhere. Next bit I would say is looking after our safety. And when I call safety, it is not only physical. For me, it is physical, mental, financial, social, and ecological, all. And currently, what makes a lot of sense for many of us is social and financial. If you have this, probably others become a bit easier to manage. But mental, financial, very critical. My personal journey of menopause was bad. I'm currently sitting in 16-degree temperature AC. And I can't tell you how difficult it becomes when the hot flashes happen or when your mood swings. Please take care of your health now. Don't neglect it. People who are young, don't think it is, I am young, I can manage everything. Focus on your health. I have not focused as much as I should. And my menopause journey was disaster. I have cried in the washroom for hours, not knowing for what, for smallest of reasons. I'm the only one who needs 16-degree temperature in my AC because usse niche jata nahi hai. And I'm still sweating most of the time in my chair. This is the kind of body heat that I have. So health is very important right from now so that your journey going further becomes important. But what helped me a bit in the menopause journey again was my meditations, my pranayams helped a bit so that I could manage it a bit easily on myself. I never collapsed in that. Although I have cried in the washroom, but it is not that I was again back smiling into the room. I was never like the dull one all the time. Uh, Last two bits from my side is have a mentor or a coach. I can't tell you the difference they can make in your life. Amazing, amazing. And last bit is develop a hobby. Honestly, it's a biggest failure of my life till now. I don't have an hobby. If I'm not working, I don't know cooking. So I'm only cleaning most of the times or watching Netflix if I am not working, because I'm not a reader, avid reader. Avid is a big word. I'm not a reader. So these all things will help you become a better version of yourself. I think so. We look for a mobile upgrade, but we forget that if we don't upgrade ourselves, survival will be as difficult as mobiles. And last bit from the overall side is don't feel guilty about earning money. Are Lakshmi, Durga, Saraswati, all are women, Dhanvantri. And we consider ourselves very low. And I have lived through the guilt. Huh? One day if the card would not swipe in the office, I would think nikal diya kya? And I was not at a bad position, but think my own mindset was bad or at a pathetically low level. I cannot blame others. So when I talk about diversity, I chair the diversity and inclusion council in the organization. But most of the times, two kind of people I have seen. One is who doubt themselves. Second are very over smart. I have seen in my organization people taking 6 months maternity leave and then resigning right on the maternity leave and joining some other organization. Someone who's even thinking of doing for whatever reason, please don't do it. Someone will lose trust because of that. So overall, for me, it is making my relationship right with money, focusing on strong core values, focusing on health, building strong relationships. And I can tell you, none of these are something which have come up as an out of world suggestion. Huh? We have all heard this. It is just that we need to reiterate in our life and focus on it. I'll be more happy to answer questions if there are any.
Ma'am, can you share how you manage all your household chores or duties with managing all your corporate duties?
One thing, Nilasha, is building strong relationship. I have my maid since last 20 years with me. एक टाइम में मेरे हस्बैंड से झगड़ा कर लूंगी, but I take care of my maid more than my husband because I know that the husband will not go anywhere. But if the maid leaves, I will have a bigger problem. But on a strategic level, Nilasha, if I see now, I am working 5 days from Pune, Chakan, where my factory is, and my family is in Mumbai. And that is because I have taken an additional responsibility, being a finance person, to take care of the factories. Purely engineer's job. I've taken a risk, but what I have done is I've made a strategy house for myself. Okay. I have aligned my goals with my husband and my daughter. And can't tell you how supportive they are, because if 5 days I'm here, and even if the maid does not come, they manage the house. So building strong relationships and aligning your family with your goals. It cannot be one-sided. Huh? It has to be mutually aligned and agreed. Supports a lot. And I'm a living example. Huh?
So you have only 2 days with your family?
Yes.
Okay.
And that 2 days are also not always 2 days, because Saturday usually there's some other work which is pending from office, which I manage. But my family is supportive because they know and they are aligned to the goals that I have shared with them.
Will you share when you want to become a CFO?
I would say it was never that I want to become a CFO. कभी सोचा नहीं था. One thing I always did was live by my core values. And one of the core values always was to give your best in the possible way. So I always did that. Another thing which I never do is pass the parcel, which is usually a corporate world technique. ये मेरा काम नहीं है. This is not my KPI. I never do that. So I think so. This helped me gradually come up to the journey where I could become a CFO.
Can you share your time with your friends?
I wouldn't say I meet them, but I have 3 sets of friends. One set of friends are actually very learned, but they are housewives. They are my people who hold me down or who hold me to the ground. Okay. One set of friends are college friends, school friends, which after that we have not worked much. But they are one who helped me be humble also. Okay. And third set of friends are office friends, colleagues, peers, where my strong relationship, even at this level, allows me and allows them to be very transparent. And this is because we can give feedback to each other without much hesitation. I can tell him I did not like what you said. And they can share the same with me. So building strong relationship, but having different set of friends, because if I only have one set of friend, I will not know whether I'm artificially pulled down or I'm artificially jacked up. So I need different set of friends to keep me humble, keep me grounded, and some to keep me patient at the office. You need to crib about your bosses, about your colleagues. Huh? You need people. So those set of friends. But last bit I would also like to add here. I have shared my menopause journey even with my boss.
Okay.
Because I need support from him. I need support from him. There are certain days where I did not feel like going to office. So I have shared with him, I'm going through my menopause. There are days where I am very irritated. I want to calm down because at my position, I cannot allow my mood swings to impact the business. So touch wood, that way, the strong relationships help you to get the support.
Ma'am, can you share any experience of your life which cause you in depression rather than menopause?
Many times. And those are self-inflicted depression. But one thing I would like to give a very important one was when my daughter was in 3rd standard. I was working in Mahindra's and I was enjoying my stint over there. Excellent boss, excellent team, work culture, everything good. But I was not able to spend time with my daughter, and that started impacting her education. She used to just scribble in her class, and she is a very obedient child otherwise. So I was trying to work around it, but it was in a very scattered manner. And in those days, I even did actually a Vastu course. I'm a certified Vastu consultant. I did a Vastu course. I calculated all my liabilities. I saw that, okay, my PF money and everything can take care of my liability, current liability. With my husband's salary, we can run the house well. So I leave the job and become a Vastu consultant. Chala to theek hai, nahi chala to bhi theek hai. I'd reached that level. Fortunately for me, before I took that drastic step of resigning without a job, I got Schindler. And I can tell you, in Schindler, to my then boss, I asked only 2 questions. No turnover, no designation, no employee, no salary, nothing. 2 questions. Whether I will get to leave home on time. And second, will I get 5 days a week working? I will not work on Saturday, Sunday. And I got it. I got that support from my then boss. And that helped me to mend my relationship with my daughter to some extent, help her recover from it. And that period of about an year was very bad and very depressing, because I was feeling that I have only one child and I'm so negligent. I was feeling guilty that for me, for my personal thanks Sachin, for me, for my personal gain, I'm letting the child suffer. That guilt was every day very strong. So that was a bad period for me.
Forum, would you like to ask any question?
No, I think ma'am has almost covered everything, and she's given very amazing insights, especially with respect to her experiences in managing household as well as the office. So I am sure all the females are really happy listening to her, and yeah, that's about it.
But let me share also, Forum and Nilasha, I was not like this 2 years back.
Okay.
I used to work 14 hours every day because I used to not trust myself. I have been able to change myself with the help of my coach.
Okay, you have a personal coach.
Yeah, I have a personal coach. He has helped me. Frankly, it's a personal coach, but it was arranged by the office. Amazing. Amazing. He taught me to get my relationship right with people, with money, have the abundance mindset. I've started writing a gratitude list every day. And I write one thing good that I have done every day. This is one simple thing which helped me resurrect my confidence in myself.
Very nice.
And these are kind of starting small, be a giver rather than a taker. These are very small things, but this changes the mindset a lot. So my relationship with money is not, I can give an example. Being a chartered accountant for so long, whenever I used to even pay an electricity bill, and this is when I have become a CFO, whenever I used to pay an electricity bill, I used to feel bad. कि अरे मेरे बैंक अकाउंट से पैसे कम हो रहे, right? This is a scarcity mindset that I had. I have started thanking money so that it is letting me buy the services. Electricity bill muft mein nahi aa raha. I'm using the AC. I'm using the benefits. So I have started thanking money for letting me buy these services or these facilities. And I think so this one thing has helped me change my relationship with money. But now it is more like not to think on spending, think on how do you create memories. I've stopped giving anyone money for birthdays, anything. Huh? It is always to be given an experience. Give a movie ticket, take them to a restaurant, buy them some vacation. Never give money.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very valuable insight, Sandhya ma'am.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you. We should conclude here. On behalf of Women Empowerment Committee of ICI, Sky High Symposium-1, I extend really hearty vote of thanks to our speaker for our second session, CA Sandhyaji Sharma, who spared time from her busy schedule to share her valuable thoughts about her life. She has emphasized on never compromise on the core values of life, build a good relations, trust yourself, have a mentor in life, keep faith on yourselves, and many more. This will definitely encourage us in our future curriculum and for making a better version of ourselves. Thank you so much, ma'am, for enlightening us through this webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you all the participants. Thank you, Bhanushali. Thank you, Ruchi. Thank you all of you who have contributed. And spare your time for this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Yes.